So over the last couple of days, I think I might have just quite possibly lost my mind. And it's got everything to do with what you're seeing here on this little board. You see, because I've come up with an idea for a video game. And it's all about farming. And as we folks with ADHD are prone to doing, I have gone hyper-focused on this idea. And I've really built it out and fleshed it out over the last couple of days. And I should probably be outside working on the farm rather than being inside and making a video about this. But I'm so excited about it, I just felt like I needed to tell somebody about it. And so you guys get to be that somebody. All right, but let me try to explain what's going on here. So there are lots of video games about farming. You know, if you want to be a big conventional agriculture type farmer driving around in big expensive tractors and combines, Farming Simulator is the game for you. Or if you like homesteading and role-playing games, then Stardew Valley is the perfect experience to really give you a chance to have a little owned small farm of your own. But this game idea that I've come up with is called Graze, and it's a game all about being a regenerative farmer who has a bunch of animals that they move around. And basically the entire game is about managing your animals and letting them graze little paddocks. Like for example, I have these cattle and sheep sitting here eating from this one paddock, then maybe say over time they eat so much that they graze it down, and now all these animals need to be moved to the next paddock, over here. As the farmer, you just sort of walk around and you have a little polywire fence reel, and you make a fence to contain your animals, and your animals will then sit in that little paddock and they'll eat down all the grass that you have in that area, and they'll poop and they'll leave their manure, and each time you make a little fence you can close it off, and so that the paddock is set and your animals are grazing in that one area. And you as the farmer then go to another spot and you have to make another paddock, and then your animals are gonna graze that down and they eat that spot. And then the grass that was over here, with a little bit of time, all that grass grows back. And so then it's your turn to go over here and make another paddock. And you boom, go here, and then your animals, you move them into the next paddock. And you basically just go around the entire game making little paddocks with your little farmer. And what happens is your animals are gonna eat and they're gonna grow. They're gonna go from being say a little cow to a bigger cow, or from a little sheep lamb to a, bigger ewe or something. And your herd's gonna grow. And eventually you can sell those animals and you get money, and you can buy more animals, or you can buy different fencing equipment, making it easier to build your fences and do all that. Or as you level up, you can add different animals too. So for example, you could add chickens, and now the chickens follow the cattle and the sheep and they pick through the manure and they keep your flies down. Or you can do things like add bees, and then they're the pollinators, and the bees can fly around and help grow your grass and your pasture faster. Or maybe for example over here, you have an area like this, and it's too much woods, and so you send in your goats, and the goats come in and they knock down the trees and they eat down the trees and they turn it into pasture, which then makes it land that your cattle can graze. I know I'm talking about this, but I have a 7-page document that I wrote up last night that basically breaks down every single rule and how the game works. For example, there's even different levels with different animals that unlock different skills. And yes, there could even be a little puppy Toby dog. And when it comes to the farmers, you can customize the farmers. You can, be all right, I want to have this outfit or this hair color, or I want to be this lady here, and this is what I want to look like.
Choose your character.
And so you can actually make your own farm and your own farmer. But the gameplay is much more chill and relaxing. You're just sort of going through and you're trying to time it so that the grazing is absolutely perfect. If the land gets overgrazed, then maybe it becomes completely barren and you have to reseed it. Or if you don't graze it fast enough, it all grows up and it turns into forest, and so then you're gonna need to send those goats in. And so timing the movement of your animals just right is the core of the concept of the game. And I know that this must sound completely crazy and manic, but it's so much based on what I've found I've been doing here on our farm. Come on, Abby, inside, let's go. So ever since we added cattle to our farm back in 2021, my absolute favorite farming activity has been setting temporary fence lines and grazing my animals. You see, when you're raising ruminants like cattle or sheep in a grass-based system, essentially all they're getting to eat is the grass that's growing. And so every morning the sun comes up, it shines light down on our pasture. That, along with the water from the rain, helps make this grass grow. And with no other real inputs other than the sun and the rain, we are essentially feeding all of the cattle on our farm. But if I let the cattle just graze one big old area and I let them do it indiscriminately, what you would find is the cattle would focus on certain key plants that they prefer over others, and certain parts of your pasture will get overgrazed and other parts will get undergrazed, and it usually doesn't lead to good pasture. But if you do intensive managed grazing like we do with our cattle here, and we pack them in very densely, and we usually move them about twice a day to new paddocks, what happens is they will trample the plants they don't eat, they will eat and stimulate the growth of the plants they do eat. Their manure and urine is actually fertilizing and improving the quality of the soil. Their manure, as well as the trampled weeds, adds more organic matter to the soil. That additional organic matter helps make the soil retain more water and become more drought resistant. The rapid growing and then cutting of the plants ultimately sequesters more carbon into the ground. And ruminants like cattle and sheep can ultimately become weapons in fighting against climate change because they're helping reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. But that can only happen if you keep your animals moving constantly to fresh pasture. And so the primary for farmers like myself to do this is a reel like you see here. This is what's known as a polywire reel, and it's got about 1,000 feet of this polywire substance. If you look at it really closely, it is a combination of plastic polywire woven in with metal filaments. Those metal filaments can be electrified. We actually use a solar energy charger to electrify the fence that we have up here, and then we connect our temporary fence lines to that energy, and so that keeps the cattle from wandering off and keeps them in one very specific place. And like I said, it is one of my absolute favorite parts of farming and definitely my favorite activity. There's nothing I like more than being out here up here on the pasture with the cattle and with Abby dog, and we're just walking around setting fence lines and moving the cattle. And because I'm moving these animals either once or twice a day, that means that I'm out here doing it a lot, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and that has me thinking about this idea of a video game. Because it's so peaceful and it's so calming to be out here moving the fence lines and moving the animals. But at the same time, it requires strategy. Like, how much space do I give the animals at a given point in time? When is it the right time to move them from this paddock to that paddock? I mean, you can see it all so clearly right here, right? Where this is where the grass hasn't been grazed. This is where they grazed actually yesterday. They've been here today, and for the evening afternoon graze, I'm just about to move them into this next paddock that you see right here. And so there really is some thought and strategy that has to go into how you think about moving your animals across the field. Oh, you can see it right here, right? This is one of those cow pies I was just referring to. You can already see insects are starting to form in here. You'll have flies, you'll have dung beetles coming through, and eventually that cow pie is going to break down, and the nutrients from that cow pie will ultimately fertilize the soil. And I'm not too worried about my cattle coming back into this space because I will give it about 60 days before they rotate back in here and let the ground rest and refresh, and the grass will be thicker and lusher than you even see it right now today. And so to me, the remarkable thing about this idea for the video game is that essentially what we're doing is it's like a puzzle or strategy game like Tetris or something. It's not a role-playing game like Stardew Valley, and it's not a simulation like Farming Simulator. Players get to just chill out, solve some simple problems, move their animals along, improve their farm, improve their planet. And the whole idea of this video game is you just get to graze and relax. Hey cows, come on cows, fresh grass, come on cows, fresh grass, come on, let's go, let's go. Usually my boss cow, Audrey, is always the first to cross the fence line, and then all the other cattle will follow suit. Now, I know you guys might be hearing all of this and saying, well, that does sound kind of serene and relaxing, but won't it get boring if you just keep on making shapes and let the same animals come through and keep grazing? But the reality is, along with grazing your animals, you're essentially building your farm. So as I mentioned earlier, essentially, as you keep feeding your animals the grass and you keep moving them and you move them in the right amount of time where they're not overgrazing or undergrazing, your pastures improve and it helps your animals grow better. Once your animals reach a certain size, you can sell them and buy more animals, and you're just constantly selling and buying animals and trading up and growing your herd and your flock. You know, sheep act differently than cattle. Ultimately, as the game evolves, you're gonna have to start thinking about where you get water for your animals. You're also gonna have to think about things like predators, like for example, maybe there's packs of coyotes that start to follow your animals. You can get certain animals like chickens and ducks to help manage pests and insects. You can also get other animals like goats and pigs, where you can take things like forest and you can turn that into additional grazing area. You could even add a livestock guardian dog to help keep your animals safe. And so the premise is you're constantly building and evolving your farm. You might even be able to buy more land with more time. And so within the game, there's just this constant reward system that's ticking off there and playing around. The purpose of the game is to get the player thinking about agriculture in a holistic way, thinking about certain regenerative practices in agriculture, encouraging them to support those things or learn more about those things or even get involved in those types of things. And I don't know, maybe encourage an entire generation of folks to want to help improve this planet and get involved in agriculture. Isn't that right, Annabelle? So by tomorrow, they're going to be done with grazing this area. So I'm just in the process of starting the next fence line here. I mean, the whole process of just trying to figure out where the fence is going to go and how many days of grazing I've got, how to efficiently move my animals across this entire paddock. That's the super rewarding part that I'm talking about with why I think this game could be so much fun. And I know there's going to be some sarcastic naysayers in the comments saying, oh great, enjoy nature while sitting inside and playing a video game. But what I think that people who take that attitude don't quite understand is just how powerful and motivating the right type of video game can be for some folks. Like I take myself for example. Back in college, I used to play a video game called Harvest Moon, which was actually a lot like Stardew Valley, or almost like a precursor to Stardew Valley. And I'd be stressed out because of schoolwork or work or relationship stuff, and I would always just really enjoy chilling out and playing with my video game farm. And for me in that period of my life, it was actually the exact right type of therapy I needed. But then I think it also, to a certain extent, planted a seed inside my brain that got me to where I am today. And so sometimes the right type of play can be exactly what the doctor ordered. Or maybe just what the Dr. Mario ordered. And so running fence lines like the one you just saw me run right there would be, I don't know, probably about 50% of the gameplay. Moving your animals from paddock to paddock would be 25%, and then sort of just watching and managing stuff would be the other 25%. And you just sort of chill out and make your fences and move your animals, and that's the video game. I know as I say that that sounds really stupid, but I think it could be a lot of fun. So I don't know, what do you guys think of this concept? Is this just like a total ADHD fever dream and I'm just completely wasting my time and confusing all of you? Or does this idea have merit and is this interesting and should I actually invest some time and energy and maybe even a little bit of money in developing this? Because I genuinely believe that the world needs more small farmers doing regenerative farming where they're grazing animals and focused on managing their farms like an ecosystem. And I feel like one of the easiest ways to motivate people into doing that and educate consumers on why this could be a better way to manage land and raise food, as well as maybe inspire some folks to go out there and start raising animals themselves. I don't know, sometimes videos are an excellent gateway drug to that sort of thing, and so I just wonder if maybe there's some benefit in creating a game like this. But you tell me, so let me know down in the comments what you think, and maybe I will expand on this idea or maybe I will just completely drop it. I'm really curious to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everybody.